What is up, guys? Welcome to my season review of Legends of Tomorrow Season 3, and this season was undeniably the best season so far. I mean, it's not undeniable, people can disagree, Season 2 was pretty good, but in my opinion, the show has just gotten better with every season. Season 1 was pretty mediocre, Season 2 was pretty good, but Season 3 is where the show came into its own and really became pretty great, especially with this actual season. So if you look at my previous season reviews, you see that every time I do one, I include standout episodes, and the standout episodes in this season were Zari, Return of the Mac, Bebo the God of War, No Country for Old Dads, Necromancing the Stone, starring John Noble, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I know a lot of people are saying that Here I Go Again and Phone Home are should also be standout episodes, but in my opinion, I didn't really like those episodes as much as these ones. So these are the episodes I included as the standout episodes of the season. But moving on to the actual review of the season. So at the beginning of the season, the main plot of the season was surrounding the anachronisms and stopping those. The anachronisms were caused by the season finale of Season 2 because they met up with their past selves and that broke time, but then it later was revealed that it was actually Mullis who caused at least some of them. But at the beginning, the anachronisms were honestly kind of boring. It wasn't until it was revealed that it was Mullis behind some of them, and Mullis got into play with them when Rip Hunter revealed that it was Mullis until it got interesting. In fact, the second episode of the season was pretty bad because all it was fixing an anachronism, and it wasn't done well either. And that was definitely the worst episode of the season by far, was episode 2, and it definitely never peaked that low on after that. But just the anachronisms really didn't work until Mullis was involved. But then once Mullis was involved, it worked really well, mainly because the anachronisms were never the focus of the season. It was more with Mullis and the totems. And first of all, the totems were just used so much better on this season than they ever were on Vixen. Just even though they were introduced on Vixen, they were created for the Arrowverse, except for the Spirit Totem, which was the one Vixen uses. All of them were actually created for the Arrowverse and introduced on Vixen Season 2. So the fact that they actually worked better on Legends of Tomorrow Season 3 compared to Season 2 of Vixen, where they were actually introduced, is kind of crazy. It's probably because they just had more screen time on Season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, and they had more time to develop. I know they're not characters, but they are special items, and the way they use them in the season, the way they were connected to the season storyline was done really well, and the way they were connected to Mullis as well, and that ended in a pretty climactic ending with them taking Mullis down using Bebo. So now we get to Mullis himself, the main villain of the season, and as main villains go, he was pretty great. At least, the storyline surrounding him was great, so that made him great, essentially, because the way he was developed throughout the season was just done so well. He was first started out as this story that Rip was talking about, and then he became a reality when it was revealed that he was talking through Nora, and then we finally got to see him in the penultimate episode of the season. And I would have preferred to see it a little earlier, like 2 or 3 episodes earlier, but the fact that he looked amazing because of how good the CGI was, I understand it. I understand why they only kept him in the last 2 episodes of the season, and really only the last episode and a little bit of the second last episode, because it looked like it cost them a lot of money to make Mullis. The showrunner even said, whenever you see Mullis on screen, you could just imagine a wad of money just exploding, because he looks really expensive to make, and that's actually a positive because he looks amazing. He looks, like I said in my review for the season finale, better than Steppenwolf on Justice League, where on Justice League they had a $300 million budget, where here they only had, I don't know how much, but a lot less. So that comparison is a great comparison in my opinion, because it shows how good Mullis was. Now the character himself, although he was built up well, the way he was portrayed in the season finale wasn't great, but I feel like that's not actually a bad thing, because as the season progressed, it became less and less about who Mullis was, and more about just stopping him and seeing where we go from there. It's just the legends coming together with the totems and stopping this ultimate evil, because that's really all he is. He's not the most nuanced villain ever. He's just this ultimate evil you need to stop, and that was done really well. He didn't need to be an amazing villain like some other villains needed to, like Deathstroke and Prometheus and Reverse Flash, is because those characters have character and they need that character. Mullis isn't the most nuanced villain, but in this context, he did not need to be, because it ended up in a really ultimate showdown between this giant Bebo, who are the Legends, and Mullis, and it worked so well, and it was just so cool to see. This season finale was by far the best season finale of not any Arrowverse show, but any Legends of Tomorrow season so far, any of the three. The last one, Aruba, was pretty good, was actually pretty great, but this one was just so much better, and this final showdown between the Legends and Mullis was great. Mullis, even though he wasn't portrayed amazingly, he didn't need to be, so that worked really well. Just to reiterate and clarify, the reason Mullis doesn't have to be the most nuanced villain ever, he doesn't really have to have that much of a character, is because he's not really he's not supposed to be a complex villain. He's supposed to be an ultimate evil, which is kind of cliche and generic, but sometimes it works really well like it does here, especially when they look as cool as Mullis actually does. So moving on to the new additions to the team in Wally and Zari, and I thought they were both great additions. Originally, Zari kind of annoyed me because she was really, really like feminist back in the beginning of the season, but she actually grew on me throughout the season and became less and less of an annoying character and kind of a great character. And I also like how she connects to the totem storyline, and that worked really well. The way they gave her the wind totem instead of powers like she has in the comics, that was great, and I'm honestly hoping for her to like maybe become a villain next season because of her comic book origins and her connection to Black Adam in the comics. That would be great, but either way, she works really well on the team, and so does Wally. Wally works even better, and he's never been better than he is in this season, or at least this version of the character has never been better. Maybe probably just because he's special. He's more special here. On The Flash, he was always outshined by Barry Allen, and that's not a bad thing, because he should be. He's a sidekick. But the fact that there were so many features on the show made him so much less special than his superpowers make him. So on Legends of Tomorrow, he works really well, mainly because he's just the only speedster there, so he's special, and because of it, he really comes into his own. So those two additions to the team, Wally and Zari, were great. Now I'm going to talk about the subtractions from the team, the characters they lost in Firestorm and Rip Hunter. So Rip Hunter, he left the team at the end of the last season, and then like 5 years in the future, he created the Time Bureau, which I will talk about later in the video. But Rip Hunter died in the end of the season, spoiler alert, and that was a death that I actually really didn't like. I feel like there were missed opportunities with the character, especially with his comic book origins being connected to Booster Gold being his father. They could have done so much with that, and in the season finale, he did not need to sacrifice himself. He really didn't, and I just feel like his character did not need to die. The other character that left the show was Firestorm, which was handled really well, despite the fact that he was the most interesting character on the show. His departure from the show did work really well, just the way they handled it. Martin Stein's death, which he did die in Crisis on Earth X Part 4, which was the Legends of Tomorrow episode, so I can't talk about that here, was amazing. The emotion in that death scene was great. The acting between Jefferson Jackson and Martin Stein, the scene between them where he died was a great scene, and the next episode Jefferson Jackson left the team, and it was fitting. And then in the season finale, we got closure to the character of Jefferson Jackson in learning that he's married and he has a kid, and the daughter we saw in the episode was actually his real life daughter, in the actor's real life daughter, so that gave closure. So Rip Hunter leaving the team, not done well, but Firestorm leaving the team, despite the fact that I really liked him on the team, and he was the most interesting character there in terms of powers and in terms of power set. But even still, his departure from the team was done really well, and the death of Martin Stein was great as well. Something this season did that I would never have guessed this show ever even attempted to do is give Damien Darhk a redemption arc, and it worked. Back in Season 4 of Arrow, he was not the best villain ever. In fact, he was pretty bad as a villain, and he killed Laurel Lance, who should not have died, like, ever. But the fact that he killed Laurel Lance and he was trying to destroy the world kind of makes him beyond redemption. But throughout the season, the introduction of his daughter, not really the introduction, but the reintroduction of his daughter really made it possible for this redemption arc to happen, and it happened, and in the end, it worked. At the end, he sacrificed himself to save his daughter, which is like the ultimate redemption when a villain becomes good again, and then he sacrifices himself in the end for one of the good guys, who is, she wasn't really a good guy per se, but she is his daughter, so it is a worthy sacrifice, unlike Rip Hunter. So the redemption arc for Damien Darhk was done really well, which is crazy because, he killed Laurel Lance, and he was trying to destroy the world, so I thought he was beyond redemption, but it turns out maybe he's not. So the number one word that people use to describe the show at this point is fun, and I happen to agree with that. This season especially was a lot of fun. All the scenes, like the one I remember the most is between Wally and Rip Hunter, where they're singing Careless Whisper in 1990s Japan. Like, that's just so much fun. And then in the season finale, when they have Bebo fighting Mullis, that was just so much fun as well. This season just had so many fun moments that it really got you engaged in the series, in the season, and therefore got you engaged in the storyline. And because of it, the storyline worked really well. The main storyline, I mean, with Mullis and the totems, and that's just, I really like that. I really like the fact that this season was fun. Not every show needs to be fun. Like, Arrow is much better when it's dark and gritty and not fun, but a show like this, where there's an ensemble group of people traveling through time and fixing time and fighting demons and monsters, that sounds like either a really fun show or a bad show. So the fact that this season was definitely the most fun out of any of the 3 seasons so far was a huge plus. So ever since the beginning of this season of the Arrowverse, I have been rating every single episode, and now I have the averages of all those episodes, and the average of this season is 8.6 out of 10. Now, that might not sound great, because 8.6 out of 10 sounds like good but not great, but actually it's a pretty good score. There's a difference between an episode score and a season score, because episodes can have like some bad moments to them, but that most of the time those like 1 or 2 bad moments don't really affect the score of the episode. But in a season score, there are some episodes that are bad, in my opinion, like Freak Show and I, Ava, that bog down the score a lot, especially when there are only 18 episodes. So an 8.6 out of 10 is definitely not bad, and the average scores of all of the other Arrowverse shows this season are definitely not that high, but the fact the score of the season is not 8.6 out of 10, because the scores of each individual episode does not usually indicate the season scores, just because there's more to it, like a season-long villain, a season-long storyline, and stuff like that. So each individual episode coming together and forming an average doesn't really indicate the score. So with the average score of this season being an 8.6 out of 10, I'll give this season a 9.1 out of 10. But let me know what you thought about the season in the comments down below. Is it your favorite Legend of Tomorrow season? Let me know in the comments down below, as well as the poll in the top right corner of the video, where you can vote what you thought about the season. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for daily polls and better notifications for my videos, because YouTube isn't really working. Or if you don't have Twitter, or you don't want to follow me for any reason, definitely click the notification icon next to the subscribe button, because like I said, YouTube isn't working, so you need these better notifications to notify you when I upload a video like this one. And as always, thanks for watching.